Hey, this is Pacific Drive. This is a first person survival exploration driving game with roguelike elements that came out earlier this year on February 22nd from Ironwood Studios. This is a run of Cappy percent, which takes us through the beginning of the game through the first three missions, lasting about just under 30 minutes. We play on, this run is on default realism difficulty and modifiers, which means we're not turning off anything like car damage or player damage. There's unrestricted, in which you can do that, but I'd like to keep a little challenge in here. The intro here, this is just a prologue showing where the game takes place, how we get into the game. This is the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. That's where the game takes place. And most of it will take place inside of what's referred to as the exclusion zone, the Olympic exclusion zone. And so we're just a humble delivery driver making a run out here. There were some notes at the beginning about make sure you stay on the roads. That's not going to happen here, which is going to result in us getting pulled in. Protagonist is just referred to throughout the game as the driver, faceless, voiceless, with a supporting cast of NPCs that you never actually meet in person, but like the storytelling in this game and writing is really good. Pretty basic part here, just delivery van that we're driving. Once we actually get pulled in, we'll get to the somewhat infamous station wagon that is your main companion throughout the game. But otherwise, this is about the only little skip that we're able to do. Get up around that corner real quick. This is also coming up here the only time you'll ever see me use the headlights. Don't really go through any tunnels, and I don't think we even get to like nightfall as far as the timeline in the game goes, but headlights take a lot of damage. They're on the front of the car. If you're going to hit any part of the car, it's probably going to be the front. And actually, if you look at an any percent run of the game, which right now I think the world record stands, just came down by 30 minutes, about 3 hours. Got a little aggressive there. Spun out a bit, but it's just a couple seconds loss. But if you're casually playing the game, when you get to the station wagon, you are typically trying, if you're playing casually, trying to keep the vehicle in reasonable health. If you do, it will protect you while you're inside of it. Any external threats won't damage the player themselves. And some runners of any percent go that route and try to keep just enough health on the car so that you're not having to heal the player, and then other runners just forgo that, basically strip down the car entirely, don't really care about putting anything on it that isn't required, and use an item called the arc dock to keep themselves healed up. But here we're coming to the end of the prologue. You see a few seconds back, we were forced off the main road onto this path and are running into this anomaly, which is going to pull us and the van in, although we will never see that van again. Also, time for this game, you'll see I've got both in-game time on the left and RTA on the right. On speedrun.com we use the in-game time, which is loads removed for timing. And right away we're gonna have the first glitch. We're gonna, this little part is supposed to run us around, get us to find the car. Turns out the fastest way to the car is down. When you go out of bounds, void out in this game, you do not die. You are just immediately returned to the car with basically no penalty. So clipping through there is the easiest way to get to the car. Unfortunately, it's missing a wheel right now, so you grab that, run a little bit away to hit a trigger, get that wheel on, and we're off. So, unfortunately, the tire that we just put on is loose. That's a type of status effect that wheels can get in this game. Also, the passenger side front wheel happens to be flat as well, so this is about another 3-minute driving section to get to the garage that you're kind of based out of throughout the game. And the car handles like garbage through this part. No other good way to put it. Like you've got two wheels that are basically garbage. They're also all the wheels on the car are a combination of the lowest two tiers of wheels, which are either summer tires or even worse, spare tires. Conveniently, we run out of gas right next to a car we can funnel, siphon. So that's my favorite line from this short run, which I've heard plenty of times now, the beef in a blender.
Fingerprint and tell me that doesn't match the remnants exactly. No. What we should be looking at is how.
So there's a couple tough corners coming up throughout this part. The car's handling is not good. It's raining. It's wet, and you just got to get through this as best as possible. Also, this has never happened to me before, so that was great. Didn't slow me down at all. So it worked out. Got through this part pretty smoothly. The dialogue back there a little bit mentions that the car is believed to be a remnant. This whole zone was, the exclusion zone was set up to research limb technology, which in the late 50s, early 60s, it was heralded as this, the next step in human progress. Turns out it came with a lot of drawbacks too, in the form of anomalies that it would set off, kind of distortions in reality. And the remnant is one of those. They are typically mundane objects that would bind themselves to a person and kind of give them a compulsion, but it was never really clear what. That's something we find out throughout the game. But unfortunately, it also kind of drives them crazy over time, and eventually, everybody bound to a remnant just kind of wanders off, disappears. So the goal of the game is to kind of both escape the zone and hopefully unbind yourself from this car. So this is just basically a tutorial section, a bunch of stuff we have to walk through. It wants us to make a crude door, which, you don't really need a door for the purposes of this short Cappy percent, but we have to walk through the motions. So we're going to break down this car with a scrapper. It also had us crack open the trunk to get at materials there. I love the interplay between the NPCs over the radio. Just fantastic dialogue throughout the game. So now it wants us to go into a locker and get some repair putty, which is just this goo you slap on to repair parts. Don't worry about it. It's limb tech. You don't need to know more than necessary. But really the easiest way to repair the car, since we just put on a fully repaired door, or a brand new door, is to strip everything else off. So the average is just 100. There's a dupe. First item dupe of the run. Just duped that mechanic kit to fix up the driver's side tire. Also had replaced the flat tire. That requires a sealing kit to fix, but there's a spare tire in the locker we can just use instead. And so here, the unusual move of immediately taking the engine out of the car and going to dupe it again. And so the ground isn't considered an inventory, so we can have as many copies of something as we want there. And since these are all technically the same item, by damaging one, by scrapping it, we're also damaging all the others. And so when the first one breaks, they're all left at basically 0 durability. So they all immediately break the next time we touch them. That allows us to get gas canisters. And we're going to get a blueprint here for the impact hammer, which usually you would want to create as soon as you get into the first mission. We're creating it ahead of time, so we don't have to make an extra stop to find a gas cylinder. And there's this friendly dumpster that you just saw out back that will always give you something helpful if you need it. Otherwise, it might just give you random materials. Well, if you don't have an engine, it's going to give you one. So, perfect. You can't scrap things out of the friendly dumpster for materials. They've got this little heart symbol on them denoting that, but you can certainly take it and use it, and we're not building any more advanced engines. So here we're just planning our route. First map is always static, and so just going to pop the new engine in. We've already made the impact hammer, and we're off.
Mile of grass can turn into 10 miles of swamp in the blink of an eye, and it does constantly.
So that item dupe trick actually allows you, when you're doing a longer run like any percent, to create tools with infinite use. Because usually durability will tick down, and you get to 0, the item breaks. But if you've duped it, the first item breaks, and the rest, well, they're already at 0 durability, so they just kind of keep going. But unfortunately, no use for tool duping in this run. So instead of following the road, we're just gonna... This is a pretty short map, which is great because we're actually gonna run this map twice. You're not really supposed to, but it helps us as a kind of skip. What they want you to do on here, on this map specifically, this Into the Wilderness mission, is collect 5 plasma and find a radio tower to pick up a transmitter so you can make an antenna back at the garage. We're going to do this map twice, like I mentioned. We hopefully want to get 5 plasma before we leave the first time. If we don't, it's not a big deal. That spark tower that I broke first, or the plasma generator by the spark tower that I broke first, is always there. That's always on the map. The second plasma generator there was random, so I just picked that up. You get 1 or 2 plasma from each of those plasma generators. I got lucky, got 2 on that second one. But going throughout this, I scanned the spark tower, scanned the plasma generator. I want to get 5 scans in before we finish this map twice. And so, also that guy, I think that was the earlier guy that I thought I got past, and he just dragged the car off. That's a type of anomaly. The spark tower is an anomaly. I'm scanning here. This is called a tourist. It's a explosive crash test dummy. So just a bunch of different hazards that you encounter, and as you get deeper into the game, you find worse ones. Not great that the car got dragged off, but it got dragged off in the right direction, so not too much of a time loss having to run over to it like that. Plus, the car doesn't get super fast while we've still got these trash tires on it. But you can see I already got the 5 plasma. It wants us to go to the radio station. We're going to skip that. And instead, we're going to go pick up an anchor, which is sort of the energy you collect throughout the game. It's based on the limb tech. And we're gonna gate out of here, which is not something it explains yet. It does. Once you get the transmitter off the radio tower, it explains like, oh, hey, you've got a map in the car on that arc device that we put on the passenger seat. It's got a map. It'll show you where the anchors are. There's another scan. I also scanned a couple of anomalies, so I've got my 5 scans in at this point as well. But yeah, you put the anchor in the arc device, that charges it. We got enough charge. That one always gives 2, so that's super useful, and it always spawns there. Everything most of the stuff, like the anchors on this map, always scan in the same places and have the same value for the most part. But yeah, we got the charge. We're opening the gate. Every time you want to return to the shop, unless you die, this is how you do it. So you've got kind of this runaway, get to the gate, because this instability will be closing in. If I had looked over at the map, you'd see there's a yellow circle and then a red circle that does a lot more damage. But But yeah, so we're kind of like halfway through the first mission, and just gonna jump out of the car and go straight back into the same map. So for Cappy percent, there's basically 3 driving missions that we need to do. Typically, this is into the wilderness, the kind of the real intro. There's another one, I think it's called Exploring the Zone, or Investigate the Zone. That is, it just wants you to go to a random other junction, which are the maps, you know, the nodes on the graph that we explore. The second mission usually wants you to go to a random one. If you do this in the right order, you're able to bypass that, and instead just do the first one twice, which is, for the sake of speedrunning, great. This is a small map. It's pretty simple. It's static. We know exactly where we're going to come in and where all of the anchors are that we're going to need to charge and open the gateway with. The car just these tires, like, the car just did not want to behave here. That was unfortunate. That was another few seconds lost, but anyway, going back to, you know, as long as we do this in the right order, as long as we do not collect the transmitter on our first run out, like, we could still come into the second round of this map needing plasma. We just need to not collect the radio transmitter, because that will trigger Oppie, who's the kind of older lady on the over the radio, telling us, like, oh, this is how you use the ARC device. You could get the energy from the anchors, open the gateway. We don't want that to happen on the first time through. So if we get the plasma, that's great. We just come back to the radio transmitter, which is how this run is going right now. So we need to get to the radio transmitter at the top of this hill. Fortunately, if the car flips over or something, it has this warp, which uses a ton of the battery of the car. It's a little gauge on the top left. You can see it's now 10 out of 50. So each teleport costs 20. It doesn't really matter for us, and you can still teleport if it's 0. But there's other devices, including the headlights on the car, that require energy.
Time to get moving.
But we're not going to get... you know, this isn't long enough for us to craft or use any of those. So, picking up what I was looking for there was fabric, because there's a couple blueprints I want to make when we get back to the garage. But
You'll need anchors. Take
see,
a look at the ARC device display.
once we got the transmitter, she started talking about the anchors, putting them in the ARC device, opening the gateway. So we're just going to walk through that, and we'll be finished with this map then.
So there's no reason to learn more about technology than you need to know.
Also, there's another one of those anomalies that'll drag you off there. Just parked far away because I did not want to get grabbed right here. Especially if it starts dragging the car down the hill while I'm trying to run after it with that anchor. Would not be so you can see the car got bumped up there. So when you pull those anchors, it usually spawns a bunch of anomalies around you. So you do not want to linger near where you got the anchor. In that case, I think what it spawned, you couldn't see it, but a typical anomaly is just a pillar of earth rising up out of the ground, and if that happens to come up under the car, it'll just bounce you straight up. So. And like I mentioned, you can see me taking damage to the player's health in the top left, because there's basically no protection on the car. The car is compromised. It has one door and no panels.
Oh, well. You're alive. For certain if the zone didn't get you, that gateway would.
So we're going to do a little crafting here, but there's a few steps that need to happen before we're able to leave and continue on to the next mission, which will be the last of the run. It wants us to install this handbrake. Need to grab a panel here for a little skip. You also have to wait for her to actually finish some of this dialogue. You can get ahead of her. It is possible to go too fast in this game, unfortunately. But going to use the hood of the car, which is just another type of panel. Get a little boost up there so we don't have to run around up a ramp.
And just because I haven't used that garage in decades
doesn't mean you can trash the place. Mess up my equipment and I'll throw you to the quick you'll get whiplash. Antenna signals coming through loud and clear.
Give it a moment to initialize.
So dialogue can be skipped, but she's also got this awkward pause in here, so this is the perfect time for us to
You'll need the space.
start talking. And so here's why I grabbed the fabric. You need fabric just as kind of a material for these blueprints. So I'm going to quickly research the summer tire and then the off-road tire. The off-road tire is amazing. It'll actually carry you pretty much through the entire game. There are more advanced tires, but they have, you know, trade-offs. But for the cost, and since you're spending most of the game driving off-road, it seriously is probably the best tire in the game. So here, I'm going to do some duping again. There's a couple different types of item duping. Back when I did the engine, you know, one type of item duping is the item doesn't fit in your inventory purposely, and you know, you're clicking on one item, clicking back on the one that doesn't fit that you want to dupe, and doing that. The other one is to spam the equip button while also spamming the drop button. And the timing on that is pretty tight. I bind it to scroll wheel to try and make it happen as fast as possible. And here I just like, it was taking too much time. My rhythm was off, so I went with the second method. Or first method, depends on which way you think about it. So that's going to give us all the materials we need for for a full set of off-road tires. That vacuum is super handy if you've got a bunch of materials on the ground. So going to quickly craft the gears and all 4 tires and chuck them to the other side of the garage. And yeah, this crafting is taking a good deal of time. But for a longer game, I mean, this is absolutely worth it. Like, in fact, I think any percent, this is pretty much where you do this anyway. Now that we have skipped the second mission, we have skipped the investigate the zone, the second driving mission, I should say. And you can see in the top right, we are on the Remnant experiment. So that is kind of the third driving mission. This one has some randomness to it. I mean, the game has roguelike elements to begin with. We're able to get around some of that. You know, that second driving mission should have been a random junction. Instead, we were able to do the first one twice. Here, we're going to go to a town, and the town is a static map. But before that, we have a junction to get through to get there. And that one is going to be random. So, you know, things can turn out pretty bad. Yeah, it is possible, actually, you know, in the rotation of maps you can get is that first map. In theory, we could get it again, I believe. But typically, you know, that's not going to happen. So quick look at the map. I spawned on the left side. The exit, there's a stable exit, which is the orange square with the arrow on it at the top. Honestly, not terrible. There's a pretty much straight shot if I just stay off the road, and since I got off-road tires, that's great. So there was an anomaly there. There's basically that red line on the ground is where a saw blade, a spinning saw blade, will move back and forth. And as you first come up on them, it's really tough to see where it spawns, and it just happened to spawn basically under my rear driver's side tire there. So that tire is either loose or flat. You can kind of see on the right side of the screen that actually, I mean, both of my driver's side tires are damaged. They have status effects. They have a small yellow diamond on them. That's probably either going to be flat or loose, which are the status effects we had when we first got the car back before we got to the shop. Not worth spending time to get out and fix those. One other status effect wheels can have is blown out, which is terrible. And just based on the way the car is handling I knew it wasn't blown out. But at the same time, if it was this short a run, I mean, I'm not crafting a spare tire to put on and keep it in the trunk. So just going to charge on ahead and get off this map. You can see those tourists there. They usually spawn in clumps like that. So if one goes off, the rest will go off. And there's one kind of poked out of the ground there that I narrowly avoided. So yeah, as the one random map we have to go through, the one random junction, that wasn't terrible. I got unlucky with that one anomaly not blowing out, but damaging 2 of my tires. And then we're on to Sierra. And so this is, again, another static map.
God.
And so,
Sierra.
I think I'll take a quick look at the map here. Maybe not even. I mean, it is always the same. So even across different runs, it may look different, but for these static maps, it's just a rotation. Like it can be rotated 90 or 180 degrees from how I came into this map. So the route's always going to be the same driving wise. So just going to jump right off the cliff there and start heading down. We need to get into the center of the town. Cappy is a giant anomaly that wiped this town out. I think that was sometime in the 70s. And the zone was active as a research center for somewhere over 20 years. I think the Cappy incident in Sierra was getting close to the end of that, where they really started to just give up and evacuate people. You can see that red dot off in the distance. That's Cappy. So the stability driving wise is a little off since both those tires are damaged. You can see I got pulled a little bit to the left there and ended up hitting a tree before I got down into this crater underneath Cappy. Just diverting here a little bit to hit the trigger. And then they're going to send us up the hill. And at this point, they want us to launch into Cappy. They want us to launch the entire car in. And they swear they'll open a gateway before the anomaly totally consumes us. So this was a nice arrangement of tourists here. Just spawned in my way. I kind of gave up on the last one and just ran over it. I mean, typically, it's not going to cause the car to get a lot of air. I don't think I even left the ground there. If the car's already in the air, it can be a problem. You can get a little ragdolling. But they want you to go into a tower there and open this barrier, but, why bother? We can just teleport the car through. I actually kick it a couple times there to get it realigned, so that I'm not just driving into the retaining wall. And that will bring us to the end. And so for Pacific Drive, all the times used on speedrun.com are based on load time removed. And so you can see the load time remove time on the bottom is 27:11. And RTA is 28:22. And go in and verify that along with the save file that it autosaves. And that is Pacific Drive Cappy %. This is, the whole game is only 3 months old at this point. Cappy % was just added within the last week of this video being put together. It's meant to be a shorter, more accessible category. This took about 30 minutes. Usually this checkpoint, I think, in-game for an any % run, you'd be closer to 40. You'd be collecting a few more resources, researching a couple other things in the shop as preparation for the rest of the run. But, you can get through this pretty quick as opposed to doing a 3+ hour run of the entire game. So yeah, I love this game. Like I said, the writing, the voice acting, and delivery is just phenomenal. I came into this game thinking that the first time I saw it was like, oh, is this another like long drive? And once I saw a little more, heard a little more about it, I started playing it and just absolutely loved it. Had to get every trophy on Steam, and hopefully I can show this off in the future as well.